Béatrice, comment?
Béatrice Dalle.
It's 1986 on a sunny French coast. A young woman in a flimsy scarlet dress perches atop a car's hood to warm her ass on the hot metal. In that instant, Betty Blue radiates a brazen, sensual cool that would ignite a cult following. Decades later, fashion magazines still dissect her wardrobe, and artists of all calibers cite her as a muse. With her gap-toothed grin, messy jet black hair, and come what may confidence, Betty became a blueprint for a new kind of beauty. Raw, rebellious, and charged with pure magnetism. And here's the kicker. By the end of this video, I'll share practical tips so you can steal a bit of Betty Blue for yourself. Intrigued? Good. Stick around.
Welcome. I'm Kira, and this is your beauty blueprint.
If you only have 30 seconds, here's the bottom line. She was the girl who could roll out of bed with cigarette-stained fingers, smudged lipstick and yesterday's dress, and still make the world fall in love. Her secret? She never tried to be pretty. She tried to be alive. But if you'd like a bit more of an explanation, follow me. Dim the lights, pour yourself a glass of red. Trust me, it fits the mood. And lean in. Let's begin by understanding who the woman behind Betty Blue actually was, and how she came to be. Béatrice Dalle wasn't born a movie star. In fact, she wasn't even Béatrice Dalle at first. She was born Béatrice Cabarrot in 1964, in the provincial city of Le Mans, France. By her own account, my childhood doesn't exist. I was born when I was 14, when I ran away to Paris, she later said. At 14, after seeing punk icon Jello Biafra of the Dead Kennedys play a gig, young Béatrice decided she was done with small-town life. She left home for the bright lights and shadows of Paris with nothing but a wild streak and big dreams. In Paris, she dove headlong into the punk subculture, all torn jeans, loud music, and living fast. She crashed with friends, lived off odd jobs and a bit of shoplifting, and even worked briefly in a morgue. More on that infamous story in a second. By her late teens, she'd fallen in love with an aspiring artist named Jean-François Dalle. She married him at 19 and took his last name, Dalle, which she keeps to this day. Life was anything but ordinary, and it was about to get stranger. One serendipitous day in the mid-80s, Béatrice was literally plucked from the street. She was strolling in Paris when a passing photographer snapped her picture. Next thing she knows, she ended up on the cover of a magazine. As luck would have it, France's most famous casting director, Dominique Besnehard, saw the cover and thought, "Who is this girl?" He forwarded her name to the director Jean-Jacques, who was searching for someone to play the lead in his new film. That was 37 le matin, better known internationally as Betty Blue. When Béatrice showed up at the audition, she found herself competing with a room full of established actresses, well-known, magnificent women, but the 21-year-old punk outsider blew them all away. They were superb, but I was better, Béatrice later said matter-of-factly. Benet agreed. He saw in her a once-in-a-generation phenomenon, something fierce and unpolished that fit Betty to perfection. He cast her on the spot. Betty Blue premiered in 1986 and quickly became the cult movie of the decade, nominated for an Oscar, a BAFTA, a Golden Globe, and turned Béatrice Dalle into an overnight icon. One British critic gushed, or perhaps panted, over the girl in her skimpy red dress, whose giggle was the sexiest sound I have ever heard, knee-weakening. 20-year-old Béatrice was suddenly being hailed as the new Bardot, a French sex symbol, even with, or because of, all her rough edges. In the film's very first scene, she appears fully nude, entwined with co-star Jean-Jacques in a sweaty, uninhibited lovemaking session that lasts a good few minutes of screen time, setting the tone for a story about raw, obsessive love. Critics and audiences alike were mesmerized by this uninhibited wildcat, but as meteoric as her rise was, Beatrice's real life was just as dramatic as the film. For starters, that impromptu marriage to Jean-François Dalle didn't end happily. Her husband grew jealous and insecure once Betty Blue made her a star. The story goes that just days before their wedding, Béatrice was so penniless and irrepressible that she got caught stealing her own wedding dress from a boutique. Locked up for the weekend, she walked out Monday morning and promptly stole the dress again to wear at the ceremony. It sounds like a tall tale, except she swears it's true, and in fact that anecdote even made it into one of her later films. The marriage itself lasted only a few years. Tragically, a few months after they separated, Jean-François took his own life. Béatrice, still barely in her 20s, kept his surname but moved on. Her off-screen legend only grew in the years that followed. She developed a reputation as French cinema's ultimate Enfant Terrible, the wild child who could scandalize talk shows and shock journalists. No live interview was safe. At a 2007 film premiere, she deadpanned to a TV host that she'd met her director in a chat room on a bestiality website, leaving the interviewer sputtering. When a veteran news anchor pressed her with a patronizing question, she coolly replied, "What about all those love letters you sent me? Why don't we talk about them?" Béatrice Dalle, it seemed, feared no one and nothing. In one notorious incident from her youth, while working at a morgue, Dalle dropped acid, as one does, and ended up biting off a piece of a cadaver's ear to see what it was like. Years later, she laughed it off. It was no big deal. The guy couldn't complain. He didn't know I'd eaten his ear. And yes, the French media lost their minds over it. "I'm a punk to death. Sid Vicious is in my soul," she declared. Yet, for all her wild antics, Dalle also guarded a fiercely independent, almost principled side. She never chased Hollywood or money. After Betty Blue, instead of cashing in, she mostly worked with edgy auteur directors on art house films. "I've done 75 films, and they're all super, because I've always worked with auteurs," she bragged later. She chose art over commerce every time. "Are you rich?" one interviewer asked. "Hell no," Dalle laughed. "I don't have a car. I don't own my place. I've never accepted a role for money. I've never lived with a guy I've married or loved. I live on my own, and I'm very good on my own. You see, I want to do all that a man can do, but much better." Her love life, unsurprisingly, was the stuff of tabloid headlines. After her first husband's death, Dalle's romantic entanglements continued to be dramatic. She spent much of the 90s in a tumultuous relationship with Didier Morville, better known as JoeyStarr. He was notorious for his volatility. He once punched a live monkey on a TV show in a fit of anger. By the 2000s, that chapter ended too. And then, in a twist even she jokes sounded like a plot from a bad romance novel, she tied the knot with Ganeil Mesiani, whom she met on the set of a prison drama. She was the only actor. All the other actors were inmates. Mesiani was serving time for a violent crime, illegally detaining and assaulting a former girlfriend. But Béatrice was smitten by what she called his extreme intelligence. They wed, while he was still behind bars. Predictably, that marriage imploded too. Upon Mesiani's release on parole, the couple had violent altercations and he was sent back to jail. She divorced him in 2014. Dalle insists she never once called the police on any lover, even the violent ones. And remarkably, she tends to stay friends with her exes. Why not? I'm loyal to those I love. In the late 80s, Dalle had a short affair with the British actor Rupert Everett, openly gay at the time. "Rupert is gay, but I am Béatrice Dalle," she shrugged with a naughty smile. "I've never thought I'm beautiful, but I have a power of attraction." Everett later wrote, "I knew I would never find another girl as good as Bea. She was perfect. When she was with you, she was with you. No one left Bea." Rupert nicknamed her Joan of Arc, the suicide bomber version. Ever since she was a girl, she found British dandies irresistible. By now you might be thinking, alright, we get it. She's a rebel and her life is wild. But what exactly made Betty Blue, her on-screen persona, that unforgettable? Why did every viewer walk away a little bit in love with a crazy fictional character? Was it just the nudity and that red dress? In the next part, we'll explore the secret of Betty Blue's appeal and how director Jean-Jacques vision made her so memorable. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. As a character, Betty Blue is magnetic in the truest sense. She pulls people in, sometimes to their doom. She's the quintessential manic dream girl, spontaneous, seductive, maddening, childlike, and dangerous all at once. Men felt attracted to her on a primal level. Take that Daily Mirror reporter. He was so flustered by her presence that he described her thumb-sucking giggle as knee-weakening. Oh my god. In print. That same irresistible pull is woven into the character. Betty is introduced as a free spirit who barrels into Zorg's sleepy life like a wrecking ball. She struts out in an off-the-shoulder red dress and matching heels, shamelessly basking in the stares she provokes. She'll make love in broad daylight or walk around naked without a second thought. This unfiltered sexual confidence is thrilling to watch. It taps into a fantasy of total liberation, and Béatrice Dalle's own comfort with her body is what sold that vision. But lust alone doesn't explain Betty's enduring appeal. There's something almost mythic about her. Many viewers found themselves not just titillated by Betty, but emotionally hooked, even in the face of the character's obvious instability. Why? Betty personifies the untamable feminine, the wild anima that promises both creative inspiration and destructive chaos. She is not the nurturing mother, not the sensible girl next door. She's the muse and the siren combined. One could see Betty as a deep, unreasoned feminine energy that lurks in the male psyche, alluring and dangerous, full of life and madness. Western art oscillates between celebrating women as civilizing angels and worshipping them as erotic destroyers. Betty clearly falls in the latter camp. Men are drawn to her precisely because she represents a release from the mundane. Her lover is a frustrated, self-doubting writer going nowhere until Betty rockets into his life, blows up his routine, and demands that he pursue his dreams. She's his manic pixie dream girl, turned up to 11. But unlike the quirky Zooey Deschanel types of later Hollywood rom-coms, Betty's dream girl energy comes with genuine menace. She's wreaking havoc, screaming blue murder, or sinking into catatonic despair. She's sex and death all wrapped up in a pretty package of turmoil. That duality fascinates people. She makes every room tremble. After learning she isn't pregnant, she sits at the table with makeup smeared into a grotesque mask, beauty curdled into something terrifying, and yet one still can't look away. She burns houses, wounds herself, dares a man to love her past sanity, and in the end forces him into the most intimate cruelty of all. We can't stop watching because she is the wild passion the French like to romanticize. That intoxicating freedom to live without any breaks, the kind of madness most of us only dare to imagine. Part of us might envy that. Director Jean-Jacques knew exactly what he was doing in crafting Betty's mystique. He was a leading figure in the 80s cinéma du look movement, a style of French filmmaking that emphasized gorgeous, self-conscious visual aesthetics, doomed young loves, and lush color over gritty realism. Betty Blue is a textbook example. Benet cast Béatrice Dalle precisely because she was not a polished, trained actress. She brought an unpredictable energy that a more seasoned actress could not. In fact, Dalle basically was Betty. The authenticity value of that can't be overstated. She delivered lines in her raspy voice that made even simple phrases drip with life. And her look, largely crafted by costume designer Corinne Jari, was deliberately unorthodox. Betty wears things like a cheap red mini dress, practically falling off her shoulders, or a man's tank top as a mini dress and not a stitch underneath, or no clothes at all, or gaudy plastic earrings, or a man's work overalls. She always looks thrown together, and yet she's stunning. It's the effortlessness that French women are mythologized for, taken to an extreme. As Zorg marvels in one scene, not many girls could dress as casually as she did, noting how Betty can make even a pair of baggy overalls look seductive. This was a deliberate part of character design. Betty's style had to seem unstudied. She's not sitting there matching her purse to her shoes. She just throws on whatever, and somehow it all works because her mad attitude sells it. That look, disheveled hair, whatever clothing, vivid splashes of color, has itself become legendary. If Béatrice Dalle didn't give off that raw star quality, the movie would collapse. Bene bet everything on this newcomer's charisma, and it paid off. After Betty Blue, Béatrice veered into darker territories and offbeat projects. In 2001, she teamed up with art house director Claire Denis for the horror film Trouble Every Day, delivering perhaps her second most notorious performance. In that film, Béatrice is a mysterious woman afflicted with an urge to cannibalize her lovers during sex. It's an unsettling movie, not for the squeamish, and Dalle's portrayal is eerily animalistic. She's both seductive and terrifying, literally a man-eater. Critics were aghast, cult horror fans were in awe, yet as memorable as she was in Trouble Every Day, that character, basically a beautiful ghoul, didn't imprint on pop culture the way Betty Blue did. Likewise, Béatrice has played witches, as in 1988's The Witch's Sabbath, a volatile alcoholic mathematician in the indie film Domain, and even herself, she hilariously plays a vampy caricature of Béatrice Dalle in Gaspar Noé's experimental 2019 film Lux Aeterna. She has enjoyed a rich career in European cinema, hotly admired by directors. But still, nothing ever quite matched that first blaze of Betty. Béatrice is aware that for many fans she is Betty, forever the 21-year-old with the devil in her eyes. Even now, foreigners call me Betty, she says. Lots of English and American rock musicians have done homages to me as Betty. I'm really proud of that. Betty Blue's poster hung on countless college dorm walls. Now, all this talk of sex, madness, and style might have you wondering, is Betty Blue's look actually emulatable? Can a real-life woman today pick up some of that offbeat French energy without, setting something on fire or actually losing her mind? The answer is yes, in strategic doses. Coming up next, as promised, I'll break down a Betty Blue beauty blueprint for her signature je ne sais quoi. Don't blink, what comes next is indulgent, simple, and completely wearable. So, let's boil it down to key elements. Call it the Betty Blue starter kit. First, makeup. One thing about Betty is how natural she often appears. She doesn't look caked up. Dalle's real skin shines through, blemishes, freckles, sweat, and all. To get that effect, skip the heavy foundation. Less is more. At most, use a sheer tinted moisturizer or a light BB cream just to even out a bit. Betty's allure came from looking like she couldn't be bothered to spend an hour in front of a mirror. And that's exactly what makes it cool. Instead of elaborate eye makeup, Betty opts for quick, effective touches. In one early morning scene, for instance, her makeup consists of just 2 high-impact accents. A wash of tangerine orange eyeshadow and a swipe of red lipstick. It's an unexpected combo, but it reads as effortlessly seductive and a little playful. You can absolutely try this. Pick a warm, peachy orange eyeshadow. For example, NARS makes a single shadow called Persia that's a beautiful matte paprika shade. Blend that softly over your eyelids. Then for the lips, grab a red that suits your skin tone. A true red with maybe a hint of warmth works great. Think Dior Rouge 999 or Max Ruby Woo, both iconic reds. Betty's lip in the film often looks slightly smudged, as if she's been kissing or just living in it for hours. So certainly do not worry about a crisp liner. You can even apply the lipstick with your finger. The result should be sensual but a touch undone. If you want a bit of flush, use a cream blush in a natural rosy shade and blend it in well. Or do as Betty might, skip blush and just let your excitement bring color to your cheeks. Betty's eyebrows are full and dark, giving her gaze intensity, so resist the urge to overpluck. Instead, brush your brows up and out with a clear brow gel. Benefit is the one I use, for example, but honestly, they're all pretty much the same. Fill in with a brow pencil if needed. A few imperfections, A mole here, a scar there, only add to the authenticity, so revel in your unique features. Finish the look with mascara. Betty's lashes aren't heavy with liner or false lashes, but a coat or even 2 of black mascara will give your eyes that bright, open look like hers. An old favorite of mine is an Easy L'Oreal Voluminous that comes with a curved brush, something to make your eyes pop without a fussy cat eye. Remember, the goal is that morning after glam. Like you might have slept in your makeup, but somehow it looks even better that way. Sometimes a bit of black eyeliner isn't a bad idea either. At the risk of repeating myself, Pat McGrath won everything when it comes to lining eyes black. I'll link this and everything else in description anyway. Next, let's talk hair and wardrobe, because Betty's style isn't just on the face, it's head to toe. In the film, Béatrice Dalle wears her hair in a short, choppy bob that practically screams, "I cut this myself after a breakdown," and it's fabulous. Her black hair is often messy, wind-blown, and falling in her face. To emulate this, you don't have to chop your hair off. Even with longer hair, you can fake Betty's tousled vibe by doing a loose updo or ponytail and pulling out some face-framing strands. The key is lively texture, nothing too sleek or perfect. Take a cue from French girls. Spritz a sea salt spray, for example, Bumble and Bumble's surf spray, into dry or damp hair, scrunching with your fingers to create that rough, beachy texture. If your hair is naturally straight and fine, you can add a bit of a texturizing powder or dry shampoo at the roots to give it volume and that slightly gritty feel. You could also use a small dab of styling wax or pomade on the ends to give definition. Bedhead's hair stick or Wise matte pomade are great choices. Mess it up a little. Imagine Betty running her hands through her hair after a bout of frustration. That's the look. If you pair this kind of hair with the makeup approach we discussed, voila, you're already halfway to looking like you belong in that iconic movie poster. Betty's wardrobe was simple, sexy, and unorthodox. Her most famous outfit is that tiny red dress she wears on the film's poster. It looks as though it's about to slip off her shoulders any minute. Betty also loved the color red for accessories. In many scenes, you'll notice pops of red. Her red high heels, red earrings, a red cardigan, a red scarf, or of course that siren red lipstick. Incorporate a dash of red into your outfit or nails to give a wink to that danger desire symbolism. Walk with a bit of a sway. Keep people guessing with a sly half smile. Ultimately, Betty's blueprint for style is about disregarding any rules and wearing what you feel good and a little mischievous in. If you put on an outfit and feel an extra swing in your hips or an urge to make out with your reflection, you're on the right track. Self-assurance is the magic that made Betty's simplest looks unforgettable. Before I let you go, let's quickly recap the essence of Betty's blueprint. Béatrice Dalle, as Betty wasn't trying to be anyone's ideal. She has said she did not consider herself beautiful, yet she always attracted attention. That came from her inner fire. Her legacy teaches us that being interesting is more powerful than being just pretty. She had that power of attraction because she was passionate in everything: love, anger, joy, sorrow, and it showed in her presence. So, whether you adopt one of her style tips or not, the real takeaway is to own your passion. Maybe it's an audacious red lip and a deep cut on a random morning. Maybe it's chopping your hair as you've been long contemplating. Or maybe it's carrying yourself with great audacity. Be chaotic if you must, but be true to yourself. Betty exploded the mold of the passive, decorative female role and gave us something far more riveting. She's feral and tender all at once, a beautiful contradiction. Well, thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the wild world of Betty Blue. I hope you found it as exciting as I did. If you enjoyed spending this time with me and our beloved, beautiful maniac, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more iconic beauty moments and movie legends. I'm Kira, and it's been a pleasure being your partner today. Now I'm dying to know, which other film heroines' beauty blueprints would you like to see next? Let me know in the comments. Don't be afraid to add a little chaos. That's the Betty Blue way. I'll see you next week with another blueprint worth stealing.